Okay.
Hold on. See if it's recording. Recording. All right. Hi, I'm here with my friend, professor, a lecturer from
No, I'm not a professor. Sorry.
yeah,
We got to restart again.
another professor here. He's a lecturer
Yes.
from Japan. And we're still going to be talking about different cultural perspectives. Um, a mate has lived, this is part two of our conversation, has lived in different countries, but he's also lived in the US in the South. So his he has a very unique perspective of not just someone who's just lived in America and lived in Japan, but someone who also lived in other countries and been to other places. So, and he's also an anthropologist. Um, so it's very nice and good to hear from him about his views on race and what we do, what can we do, how can people who have so different point of view can come together and stop hating each other. I mean, I think this is how this conversation have to turn to, because it can't just talking about the problem, but well, what are some of the solutions that he sees? Because no, does he does a very good job. He's been researching, I think, Christianity in Nepal. Um, so he probably have seen some reconciliations what the Christian community has done with the Nepali community in general. So I mean, how does a society does that? Because you are broadly read. So before we continue, I would like you to give a brief introduction. I already said you were a doctor, so go ahead, mate.
Well, first of all, I've got to say that I'm not a professional of like this racial problem, so I don't think I can provide you with a good solution for this problem. And I lived in the United States when I went to the United States when I was 15. I moved to Tennessee, then lived there until the age of 18. So I stayed in Tennessee for 3 years. Then I came back to Japan. The reason why I came back to Japan is that, well, in the United States, you have to study very hard in university. But also, well, Americans really don't study very hard in high school, but they study in university. And Japan is reversed. You study very hard in high school, but you don't study very hard in university. So I what?
Is that serious? That in Japan, the university is much uh, less academic rigorous than in the US.
Well, well, we don't study in university.
What do you do?
Well, we have parties.
I mean, that's what we do in America too.
Well, make girlfriends or whatever, like or boyfriend or whatever. But well,
Americans
but
don't.
but you've got to understand. We study so hard in high school, very hard, and entrance exam is very hard in
It's
Japanese
competitive.
university. It's very competitive. So,
Not everybody goes to university, I'm assuming.
well, probably now 50% of the high school students go to university. But the thing is that Japanese universities are very clearly ranked. Like you have very top university, Tokyo University, and well, it's not like the United States. Like in the United States, you have like what
Harvard,
well, Harvard is very
Ivy
good.
the Ivy
Like
League universities, and so in the United States you have like Ivy League university.
yeah, but it's
And
probably
well,
more the ranking is more rigid in Japan. So it's very clear hierarchy of universities in Japan. So high school students study very hard to get into better universities. And this is what happened. What happens in Japan? I went to a university called Keio University in Japan.
Which is one of the best universities in Japan.
Well, not the best, but good enough probably. But I majored in business and well, I studied what business and commerce in Keio University because I got accepted only to that faculty. So university name is very important, but what you study in university is not really important.
Mm.
That's it. So, well, I studied very hard in American high school because my English wasn't good enough. I studied so hard in high school. Then I stopped and thought that if I go to American university, then I have to study also in university. So let's go back to Japan.
No, you wouldn't have studied because from my point of view, I think in America, you probably would say high school is very difficult because the reason is high school, for a lot of people, you are studying things you don't like. In colleges, you tend to have,
Really?
yeah, in college, you tend to make choices of things and you take some useless classes and you sleep in, go to parties and have sex. That's it. It's not very difficult. So probably maybe Japan in general, everything is difficult. That's why when you came to America, you were academically successful. Because I was gonna ask you before you came to America, were you academically very good? Academically,
My academic record was good enough, probably.
prior for coming to America, right?
Right.
But when you went to Tennessee, I remember you were telling me that like you made A's in your English class or something like that.
My graduation was 16th out of something like 300 students.
Yeah, and you didn't speak English before you.
I didn't speak any English before.
And we had a friend that actually used to help you with your. It was through him that we actually met you.
Nathan Sloan.
Yeah, Nathan.
Nathan Sloan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
He helped me a lot.
Yeah. Nathan was your um tutor, right?
He was like my tutor, and well, this is what I found out. Like, did I say that? Did I say this to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I Nathan Sloan, I met him in Nepal because this is kind of like he visited Nepal later. I met him in Nepal, my classmate Nathan Sloan, and at the time he told me there's a math teacher, a common math teacher. Well, we were in the same class, and the math teacher told Nathan Sloan to be friend of mine.
To be friend of you?
Had to help me.
To help you, okay.
Right. So I was really surprised about that Southern hospitality. I didn't know that until I graduated. Well, until I went to Nepal.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I wanted to. I think, for example, I live in New York now, where most people in New York tend to think people in the South are very
conservative.
Yeah, honest. And I find that that's to be actual reverse, because here people, unless they need something from you, they will never approach you or do anything with you. They're not gonna mess with you. They don't. Where in the South, people tend to get into your business.
Right.
And you find out that you live. I mean, your dad was a Toyota as an executive. So I'm assuming that you live in a South.
Oh no, not actually Toyota executive, but Toyota related company.
Toyota related, So I'm assuming that you was an executive. So you live in a very good or middle class neighborhood.
Yeah.
So the schools were probably very not bad. How many? What was the racial component?
Racial component? Let's see. I don't really remember, but probably 7. Let's see. I'm trying to find my annual. Is that okay?
Hold on.
There
Just a minute.
were probably
I just started recording again.
okay. Are you recording again?
Yeah, I'm recording. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, what you remember the racial component of that?
I don't exactly remember, but probably
Okay,
prob
on top of your head, like in your class, how
my
many
class.
how many blacks do
Mm,
you have in your class?
there were in my class 3 out of 30 students. So probably blacks compose 10% probably.
So there were 3 blacks out of 30 students. You say
No, 3 blacks out of 30,
3 blacks
something
out of
like that.
30, and
So
then
probably 10% or 15% at most.
and how were they, from your observation, how were they treated?
Well, I don't know. I'm not really sure, but it seems like they don't communicate with each other. Like blacks make their own community, and whites, make their own community, and they don't interact with each other.
Really?
They
So
don't.
even in the school, yeah, it's like in the middle class neighborhood.
It seems like
So
they are.
the blacks, like the blacks in your class, for example, in
Hmm,
your class, they didn't communicate with the whites.
they really well. Like there's a superstar. His mother is white,
Hold on,
and
hold
his
on.
father.
Okay, we're resuming this conversation from. I think I was asking you about whether the blacks also didn't have any interactions with the whites, and white didn't have any interaction with the blacks in a class of where there were only 3 black people.
Well, they talk in school, but they don't have like deep personal relationship.
Okay.
So, but there are exceptions, like football superstar.
Hmm.
His father is black and his mother is white, and he is very well. He can, like he's like a middleman between black and white. And he's really a superstar. He was very good in academics and also sports, and he can do anything.
Hmm.
And I think
Okay.
he went to U.S. Army or something. I don't know. He got a huge scholarship, and he went to.
Mhm.
He's a very bright guy.
Okay. So he's a guy. He's a guy who bring the whites and the blacks together.
Yeah, it was well. This is my observation when I was in high school. So I don't know if it's well.
Yeah, we are
Um,
talking from your observation. So
hmm,
it is, you know, because the perspective is. I think if you don't have people who are
hmm,
coming, who don't force themselves to be close to each other, we always see our differences more.
yeah.
But I think once we tend to come more together, I think the differences tend to be a little bit lesser.
Hmm.
You know, would you agree with that as an anthropologist? Because you fall. I mean, part of what you study is the tiniest differences in culture, right? And
Hmm.
and instead of maybe a sociologist who tend to focus on broad differences, you
Hmm.
tend to focus on you
Small.
small differences. Like
Yeah.
even like your research, you tend to focus on
Hmm.
specific differences in
Hmm.
Christianity,
Hmm.
in religion, in Nepal, and so
Hmm.
most of you just not. So like you find that if people are not forcing themselves to interact with each other or to then when they, I mean, once they get um older or something, everybody just go their own way, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah. What do you think about that?
Hmm. What do I think about that? What do I think about that?
Yeah,
You mean
like in your class when people were not because these are the people who go out to the world to have to work with each other,
Mm,
or some of them will become police
mm,
and have to, you know, police one another, you know. So if you don't start somewhere, and in high school or middle school, where it's supposed to be, much easier for people to interact, and if they're not doing that, you know,
mm,
we even in a place where you have
mm,
two
mm,
black people, and those black people are not being, I want to say it's like half and half, that it's much easier to separate yourself. But when you are literally, you know, like
you are what?
when you are literally, like not even 10% of the population,
Mm,
you still have to,
uh,
you know, have your own separate identity, culture, or separation.
mm,
You know, that's probably how things happen. You know, then when we
mm,
come to the world, we just don't trust one another.
mm.
You
I
know,
see. I see. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah.
Oh, there are. Well, I myself, never felt discriminated in the United States as a Japanese, as an Asian. And but there are two. I was really surprised about two racial issue. One of there are two interesting episodes I want to tell you.
Mm.
When I was in geography, no, is that geography? No, 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 no. It's a world geography class. Probably it's world geography class.
Mhm.
The teacher introduced about the segregation policy that United States had before. It's like that, like equal but separated or whatever. You know, the United States had that policy, right?
Yeah, history. When you're in history class.
Yeah.
Okay.
And no, I think it was in geography class, world geography class.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
All right.
But the teacher asked students, "Is it better to separate black and whites, like black and white school? Like, is it better to make a separate school for blacks and whites to students?"
So it's a class discussion.
Yeah, class discussion. And and I remember that there were well, I can't show you statistically, but some students said it's better to have segregated school system. It was in 1997, I think.
Mm.
So Tennessee is very actually well, have a very strong sense of, like, division between black and white still.
So most of the
And I
students,
was not most of the students, but some students. I was really surprised of that. Like, I thought, like, when I was in high school, I just came from Japan, and I thought, like, I imagined that America is a very, like, a utopia or whatever, and there is no discrimination, whatever. But well, actually, some students answered that there should be segregated school for blacks, and I was really surprised. And
just for
I
schools,
said, "What?
just for schools, because you talk, so you say geography, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
if it's a geography class, then I will understand why. Um,
I
I'm
think he
not making
was.
excuse this. I understand why it's probably because blacks live in a very different neighborhood than whites, right? So there was a time where they used to bus blacks and whites to
Mm,
different neighborhood of schools, and nobody liked that. Even blacks didn't like that. They didn't want the kids have to get up in the morning and then
mm,
get and travel to another neighborhood, for school. And whites,
mm,
they also didn't like that, have to travel into the black neighborhood,
oh,
for school. So it was a very tension that it was a policy that I think nobody did like, even though this primary, in the Democrat primary, it became an issue because the nominee, the current presumptive nominee, Joe Biden, was one of the people who was against it. Even though majority of blacks, from what I have read, also were against it, and people, I sometimes forget history, so they were like, oh, you were for busing, which means you were for separation, you were for discrimination. But that was not his, according to him, that was not the thing. The thing was, um, why are we just changing the neighborhood? Why are you not making schools better in those neighborhoods instead of, you know? So if it's a geographical class, maybe I don't understand the perspective of where it's coming from. That might be
No,
then.
yeah, I'm very sure.
Yeah,
I'm,
then if it's coming from maybe let's say social justice or some a
yeah,
different,
probably something like that.
you
Something like
know,
that. But I'm
so both of them have different angles. You know how it plays out.
well that teacher was not really well, I'm pretty sure it was geography class, but it was just a very pure racial discussion. I
Mm,
remember that.
mm. And the teacher
But
did it. So what was the teacher's perspective though?
well, I don't remember. Sorry, I was in high school. I don't forgot. I was just surprised by the fact that some students support that segregated school system in 1997, and I asked him, "Where do I go? I'm also colored, and do I go to black school or do I go to white school? Something like that."
You probably go to the white school because your father hires them. your, your father is
Mm,
their boss, right? Because
uh,
most of the people that went to your
uh,
schools work for your father. Their parents work for your father. You know. Um,
oh, this is the
so
first
it
episode.
depends. So, like, I think there was that even for whites, right? For blacks, no matter what their income level is,
Hmm,
like a rich black person will live in a middle class white neighborhood. I think that's, you know,
hmm.
um, that's, so, I mean, your father was your boss, so you,
All right. Now, I want to add another thing. Like, what surprised me in the United States is like a friendship among high school kids. That was very surprising for me.
I didn't
Like,
know that.
like like, well, we are really flat in Japan, but it seems like your father's income is the basis for friendship. It seems like to me in the United States, like middle class make friends with middle class,
Mm.
and I thought it's kind of related to church, like like in that city I lived in, there was a there are so many churches, and you have like a gorgeous church, like a rich church, or you have poor church, and it seems like your father's income is decides which church you go, and that decides your friends. That's what I really that,
So,
and that doesn't happen in Japan. We don't really care about father's income or your or class status in when making friends.
so how
But
do you make friends in Japan?
well, we just become friends
So everybody
in
becomes friends with
school.
one another because I think high school is more cliques. So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
clicks.
not
Yeah,
sure
click.
even if it's income. I think it's so.
Well, income is
So it's I think it's the
very.
athlete. You know, tend to have their own group. Then the nerds
Mm,
have to have their own group. But
uh,
there is a mixture of both. You
mm.
know, but you're
But
right.
like
If
you're
your parents are friends, you are more likely also to be friends, right? So
right.
rich people or certain class of people who their parents are friends, they end up becoming friends. But from my observation, I think it can be also very different because you can have, you know, like a very hot girl or the cheerleader, and then she has like her underlings because
Mm,
she doesn't want the competition,
mm.
you know. or she has her own group of,
people. Nice.
uh,
Yeah, is that clique or yeah, well, it's like that. Like, well, my high school classmates used to ask me how much money my dad makes, or like something like that. And it's never that's a question you never ask in Japan.
really, because that's a question actually you don't ask in the States.
Oh, really?
No, that's
Oh,
it.
my classmates used to ask me all the time.
Because I used to remember, like in Nepal,
Yeah.
like even in India, people ask you those questions, and Americans used to feel so uncomfortable because how much you make, your money is a very personal thing. Like Americans don't talk about money a lot,
Hmm.
right? So maybe he was just in the area that
Well,
or it's just the kids asking you that.
I
You
see.
think
I
that your
see.
parents were rich or something,
Oh.
you know. Excuse me, because Americans don't ask how much, people. That's what people, because I used to remember, like in Nepal, people ask you, "Oh, how much is your couch? How much is you paying for rent? How much?" I'm like, that is none of your business. And
Oh, I
in
didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought it's normal in the
no,
United
no, no, no,
States
no,
to
no,
ask.
it's not. Maybe
Oh,
you see, probably kids tend to be very inquisitive.
oh,
They assume that your that might be very different.
mm,
Because I must, like people with you know, with your dad's same status, like age group, will never ask your dad
mm,
that question.
mm,
But if you are my friend or something, and they start talking, they're trying to be more inquisitive by asking you,
mm,
"Oh, so how much does your father make?"
mm,
I think that's very different. Um,
mm.
no,
It
it's
was
not.
just only to me.
No,
There was
it's
a,
mine is a very sensitive question. Mine is very sensitive in the
mm,
States from my point of
mm,
view. Yeah, mine is very
mm,
sensitive, sensitive thing.
I didn't know that. Oh, the next episode, I want to
Hold
like
on.
an episode,
Alright. Okay, next episode. Right.
another episode. Well, you were stopped? Oh yeah, you were there. And I was talking about the racial problem in with my white friend, and he got so angry.
In
Tennessee.
because I is it
No,
because I feel
no,
that it doesn't exist?
no. What he said is that you think blacks are only those who are only discriminate, only blacks who are discriminating in the United States, but we whites are also discriminated.
By blacks,
No, not by blacks.
by blacks.
Like the word redneck,
Yeah,
redneck.
but I think that's very true.
Yeah, it's poor whites.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and I think so. This is why I think some black intellectuals is saying that we you tend to have something more in common. Blacks tend to have more in common with maybe poor whites, right? Because you have
Right.
the elites, who
Mm,
tend to on both parties tend to pit one against the other and say, oh, these blacks are taking your slots,
right.
taking your jobs, they are taking.
Mm,
But meanwhile, their children will go to. So this is my observation that I've seen. You know, um, like you see how sometimes even white treat people who live in a trailer park very disrespectful, very demeaning,
mm, mm,
um, not very good at all. It's the same way, you know. The difference that maybe blacks would say that if that black if that white person comes outside and is dressed up, the police or people are not going to harass that person.
mm.
Or when he goes for a job
That's true.
interview, he's probably going to get it because he's white,
Mm,
right?
right.
But in terms of social interactions, yes, they get discrimination. But in terms of um, like opportunities or something, they probably uh, get what I mean by is if they get outside and the police and they dress up, the police is not going to harass. Where when I the moment a cop sees me, they automatically assume that I'm a criminal,
Mm,
and you have to prove that you're not a criminal,
mm,
and that's where the tension is. And I'm like, I don't have to prove anything. You cannot. I'm born a crime, born as a crime, born a criminal. I don't have to prove anything. I haven't done anything to you. You can tell me to prove myself. Who are you? And that's what it, so I listened to a radio show here in the States, and sometimes you hear this white people saying that, oh, black people got a chip on your shoulder, So yes,
Chip,
chip on your
chip
shoulder.
on that. What does it mean?
Chip on it's just an expression means the a chip on your shoulder means like we are like we are prideful people, and we think we are better, like we're angry or something. If somebody have a better way of explaining it, um, um, that'll be good. But I think that's the best explanation I can come up with right now. Is chip on you, it's just it and blacks are saying, no, I don't have a chip on my shoulder. You are treating me as a criminal, and I'm like, F you, I'm not a criminal, and I don't have to prove anything, because you're not going to treat the other white person that way. So why are you treating me in this way? I think that's unfortunately that's where a lot of the stuff come from.
Just recently, another black was killed in Atlanta, I think.
Yes, I don't know the whole story, so I don't want to talk about it. I think that from what I've read, he was sleeping or was
in a car or whatever,
yeah.
and he was drunk or something like that. He tried to escape. No, he tried to actually resist the police.
Okay, so he resisted. Okay,
He resisted.
okay.
That's what I read. I'm not sure. That's what I read.
Yeah, I didn't even. Sometimes the news is not very clear because I think
accurate.
Saturday, and it was for me Shabbat, so it was. So I haven't had a chance to kind of bruise the news, but I saw it briefly on Twitter, and Twitter is not very good about providing information. So I just move along, and I hope it doesn't cause, because I only saw like a news clip because the chief of police of Atlanta resigned.
He resigned. Chief, or probably somebody. Was it a chief?
She's the head of the police. So I'm not sure
Who was?
Because most places, so like New York has commissioner. Some places just have chief.
I see.
Different chief. In New York, I think they have both the chief of department and they still have the commissioner. So yeah. So
so
that's commissioners. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well.
So I'm not sure what happened over there, but so that's so your friend who I think he get discriminated, right? And they will probably also will look at a black person and say, "Oh, you get opportunity that I'm not gonna get," and this is where they say they might be right. They say when I apply.
The problem of affirmative action, right?
Yes.
That's also
right. So if they're in the same, let's say the same academic level, if there's affirmative action, the black is going to get it, right? But this is what they don't realize. If the rich person who is below them, that rich person will get it before they also get it. So I would say in America, it's not so much sometimes it's not even race, it's class. Look at like the scandal that happened. I don't know if you heard about it. There's a college scandal in the US where some rich people.
Yeah, I think I read it. Yeah, paid money or whatever. And
if you look at it, right, all those rich people, if you ask them, they will say they are for affirmative action because they know it's never going to affect them. They will pay their way, and this is one way that's even is illegal for them to do it. Some places, like the president's son-in-law, his father, I think, donated $2 million to Harvard, and his son got admitted to, And that's
So,
legal.
hmm,
Where this these people just didn't do it right. They just did it, So sometimes even when people who say they're for affirmative action, they say, "Would you?" So these poor people look at it, but they don't look at that side. They don't look at you know how the Bushes or the Kennedys
hmm,
are able to go to Harvard. They look at the black
hmm,
is taking their spot, but they don't look at how are all these rich people. I'm looking at somebody like the Como brothers. They're not very bright people. I mean,
hmm,
they're some of the dumb, dumbest, with this thing. And they went to Rice and Ivy League schools. So it's like, how did they get to that?
hmm,
How did they get to that? But if you ask them, they will be both for affirmative action.
hmm.
You know. So then it pit the poor black whites against the black because that poor white is looking
Goes
at
against.
another upper middle class white person, black person,
Hmm,
and their children. And you look at this, look at this and say, I'm poor, you are better than you are way richer than I
hmm,
am. So let's say Colin Powell's children will get affirmative action. And their children is just like, look at you, you have all advantage that I didn't get. And I think, that's probably a a part of it, from my point of view.
hmm, hmm. But when you look at the history, is that right? I just read an article regarding is that the GI Bill
Legit.
after World War II?
Yeah.
The government gave money for house to only white people. Is that right?
Yeah.
They did. The government didn't give blacks.
That I don't know that much. Yeah,
Oh,
I think when it started, yes, I think, yeah.
I think the government provided money to only whites, and that is actually the beginning of this. Not the beginning, but it enhanced the income gap between black and whites. Like
Mhm.
so. When you look at the history, I agree with affirmative action because like well, blacks were treated very bad. I mean, they didn't have opportunity, so it's
Yeah,
really good.
we're not allowed to go to school. They were not allowed to.
Yeah.
But this is also where I think for me, becomes very complicated, right? If I'm honest, should my children get affirmative action?
Should your children?
Yeah,
Well, think. Well,
yeah.
I think they should.
Um, and the reason is you look at Asians, right, in America, right?
Hmm.
Actually, Asians were also discriminated in America a lot.
Wow, I never felt myself discriminated.
No, 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 no. But the government did discriminate. There was a lot of
Oh
law
yeah, yeah, that's
passed,
true. Yeah,
yeah.
like it's like that. Like if you go to Harvard, it's like easiest is that the blacks go to Harvard, the second whites, and the hardest is for like Asians.
Yeah,
It's almost impossible for us to go to Harvard, even
yeah,
though we make a perfect score on SAT or whatever. It's
yeah,
very hard.
yeah. So what most people are saying that,
Well, you don't have to go to Harvard to be a scholar. You can go to other schools.
so what is so the Asians are saying that my people were discriminated, and some of these Asians, right? They are immigrants who just arrived, or and their parents, a lot of them, their parents don't speak English.
Mm,
If you look at like in New York, some of them actually live in I think section 8 or section 9 houses, like low income. They're very low income,
mm,
So they kind of demolish the argument that most people make that, excuse me, that you have to be, successful or something to, you know,
mm,
they say that I think this country there's opportunities, right? That you really have to, you know, go for it. Um, from my point of view, you have to
mm.
work hard at it. So why the Asian? That's a very good question. Why the Asians, have to be almost discriminated? There's only people like in New York, all the elite high schools. So New York has selected elite high schools. A
Hmm.
lot of the kids who end up get admitted to the schools were Asians. So the mayor, they are changing the whole system so that it doesn't become only Asians to get, you know. I mean, so why is that? Why, I mean, why we trying to discriminate against, people, you know,
Why?
who almost have the same um status of as blacks,
Hmm.
as browns, because they can also get discriminated against, you know.
Well, it really depends on like the background. Like I'm a Japanese, so I have a Japanese nationality. So if I don't like the United States system, I can just leave.
You're not Chinese.
No, I'm not a Chinese. I'm a Japanese.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
like no, like it's just for me. I mean, I don't really care about the system Harvard. Like this racial discrimination against Asians because it's an American university, so they can decide whatever they like. And well, if you want to go to, I mean, if I don't like the system, I just leave the United States. That's it. And that is going to be a huge loss for the United States, probably. Because, like, well, this is very interesting about the United States. It's like America is very good at buying people worldwide from everywhere. Like scientists, like if you see these like scientists like Einstein, like Oppenheimer, or these all people. No, well, not all, but there are exceptions. But America is very good at buying people from other countries.
Yeah, I would say what America has is opportunities,
Oh,
right?
it provides opportunities to
And
foreigners.
then it opens the room for competition.
Right, right, right.
So in certain places, depending on where you came from, your dad or your destiny, you move to a certain rank, right? If you grew up, but you see, that's what probably. I remember you said this. You used to say this in Nepal. You said that America, the reason America is successful is that they pick the cream of the top
Right,
10%
right. And that's
around the world.
very
And as time goes on, I think I'm disagreeing with you. I think the top 10% actually is around the world. I think what America does is it opens room for people to grow and people to compete, right? Because you can be the
Mm,
best.
well, is that so? It depends on the perspective. Because like when I was in Nepal, I was like really sad because like so many doctors come from Japan, America, like to help Nepalese people, right?
Mhm.
But what happens to Nepalese doctors? They go to America.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, but that's still different, right? Because they are going for opportunities. They are going
Yeah,
for
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so for doctors,
yeah, yeah,
like for doctors, yeah, they have their personal dreams or they want to
yeah,
be rich in the United
yeah,
States.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I
They want to make
understand that. I
yeah,
understand that. But
but what I'm
doing
saying
from the
is what I'm saying is America keeps up. There's the reason why the some of the scientists able to because of the room to think, the room to create, right?
right.
So you don't even necessarily. I don't think you necessarily have to be the best. I think you just have more room. Somebody, um, and when you have different point of views, that's not very confined of that doesn't restrict you of how you can think. I think you have more room to grow, right? So, like, I mean, some of the best, physicists are probably in Russia,
Hmm.
you know, but America tend to have that because you have probably the room, I would say, the room to be creative and to make mistake because we don't necessarily punish mistake in America, right?
Hmm.
You know, um, um, we don't necessarily punish, because like your culture, failure is something that people don't want to do. Right? I mean, that's almost shame.
Right.
You know, um, so you can. That's why you still have people creating businesses, and 90% of them will fail in the states. So I used to remember that you used to say that. But I think the more I think about it, the more I agree, but I don't agree completely, because I used to remember that you said America used to buy buy, buy, buy all the best of everybody around the world, the best sports people, the best, the top
Oh,
1%, the top 1%. Yeah.
I'm not blaming the United States. I'm not blaming America. Oh,
No, no, no,
but
no. I'm not
if
saying
you
you blame me.
see, if you no, but if you like take the Nepalese perspective, like if you are a Nepalese politician, you spend so much money for like educating doctors, but these doctors go to America. What do you think? So from the perspective of Nepalese
so
politician, America is
so
actually buying people.
so
It's
this is
just
why. So
just
they
like
so this is a they have to ask themselves, why are people leaving? Yes, are they just leaving for more opportunities, or are they leaving for you
oh,
know?
this is a very, very, very big issue. This is a big issue. I mean, I would say,
Oh no, because I've heard people talking about it. I've heard people talking about it in
uh,
Nepal. I've heard people talking about it. So it's a very interesting discussion. You
this is
know,
a very, so, what is happening in Africa is probably the same, right? Nurses, doctors, they go to the Great Britain or whatever, European
yeah,
countries. And,
yeah.
like, this is, this is crazy. I mean, these countries are very poor and they can't satisfy, I mean, they can't provide so much money for doctors and nurses, but if they leave their countries, I mean, oh, it's very ironic, like American doctors are working for Nepalese in Nepal, and
Become a
Nepalese
stationary
doctors
and
come to America and go to America and make money. That's kind of like, it's really ironic. That's a
yeah,
result of
yeah, yeah.
globalization.
Yeah. Right.
And
You have to take care of
also,
your family.
so like top scholars in Japan also often go to the United States, because United States provides much more much better environment for scholars. So, oh well, America is probably clever. I would say chalak. You know the word chalak.
Slovakia.
Clever,
Okay.
cunning,
Clever. Cunning.
clever.
I haven't heard that word for a long time, Chalak. Because you used to use it for. I don't want to say it on the video. The people you use it, you normally use it for, but
Oh.
um, because this is going around the world, so I don't want people to um, eh, to start harassing you when you go for your interviews. You know, yeah, yeah. Because, but again, the room that provide look, I always look the the people who come to America
Mm,
are people who are hungry. Let me repeat it:
mm,
hungry,
mm.
meaning they have like you go through so many things to come here. So I think in itself, it's like the survival of the fittest. The best of the best come here, because if, even like it's the Chinese, the Asians who come here. The best come here. I
Mm.
mean, you were not necessarily an immigrant. I mean, your parents just came here to help set up, Toyota plant, right? When they first came. So you were
Oh,
not like the
it's not
usual.
Toyota.
Huh?
It's not Toyota. Toyota related company.
No, yeah, but he was a consult. I mean, their job was to help set up the
Right,
plants,
right.
right? Okay, so I mean, you are not a typical immigrant story. In a way, though, he was just transferred to come do a job and then go back,
Right.
right? Um, but the immigrants who let's say, want to get out of Japan and come here, they have something, they have a dream, and if they think they can do it in Japan, or the African who comes to America, they have a dream, they have a zeal, they have a passion, and that's why probably when it comes to immigration, I don't think they should make it easier. I think they should just leave it the way it is, from my point of view, because if you make it like a certain way where, certain people can get in, if you have the right credential and the stuff, the right people will get in. You have Europe, you have, but people who come into America and get in, and sometimes they come illegally and they try to find a way, if they're not criminals, are people who are hungry. So, their children tend to become successful. The, you know, for good and bad, the American dream, you know. So those people come here and they look at blacks. Again, I'm turning this back to the African American. They're like, you live here all your life. Why are you complaining? Why are you complaining?
Is that what they say?
How come Nigerians makes almost the top percentage of blacks in the MBA courses in Harvard? They're immigrants. You sitting here complaining. You've had all the advantage. You went to the school. You speak the language. Now, why are you complaining? And then, so you look at Africans who come here. They look down on the blacks. They think they're lazy. And the blacks.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Then the blacks, African Americans, look at it. So you people are ungrateful. Without us, you will not be here. We have fought for you. So why are you looking down on us? I didn't grow up with a father. I didn't, so it's like a problem that we are not talking to each other about. That we don't see each other's problem and we don't see each other's need. So we look at.
That's a very interesting ethnographic research topic. The relationship between blacks. That's very interesting.
They don't like each other.
They don't like each other.
They don't like each other.
I see.
They don't. They don't. That Africans think Black Americans are embarrassing them.
Oh, really?
And then,
really?
Then the blacks thinks the Africans are ungrateful SOBs. I'm talking in broad sense. I'm not saying that everybody thinks that.
Yeah,
I understand.
In general.
Yeah, but they call them names. Africans call Black people names. They think, and African Americans, I don't blame them. They look at us from African. They see people ungrateful assholes. Without us, you will not be here. And when the cop looks at me, he looks at you. They don't see any difference. I say when a cop,
oh yeah,
a cop, look, they don't see any difference. So what is your problem? So there is that tension. There's that tension between. There's a tension with all of us. And I think African Americans, like you said, they have had a raw deal in America. But there's this guy that you should listen to him. His name is Killer Mike. He's a rapper. He's a rapper, and he talks about. He's a kind of a leftist, Bernie Sanders guy, but he tends to tell the truth, and his point of views is, prior civil rights, blacks, African Americans had higher, level of income they were almost like a middle class,
Hmm.
because they were the plumbers, the handymen, because they could do all those kind of work. Um, they had, a lot of them had their own farms, so they live in their neighborhood. They have doctors, people look. But when you had integration happen, eh, most of the blacks moved from the south or from the wherever they to the cities, and when they came, there were no jobs,
Hmm.
and people turned into and
Hmm.
and the government said, "Oh, if you want us to give you money, you have to kick the father out of the house." I mean, I'm just saying that as kick the father out of the house. I said, "We can't give you money if there's a father in the house." So the mothers are like, "Okay, let's get this," and then they didn't do it very smartly. But as we know that if you want a a stable place for children to grow, you need a two parents house. Two parents house help.
Hmm.
You know, um, two parents household helps a lot. You know, yeah.
Hmm. Well, the problem is, I don't know, it's everywhere, but the biggest problem is like making a division between people. Well, you can, it's everywhere, but making a division, like in Nepal, there's a caste system,
Mm-hmm.
and like they divide people, and groupism is a group, right? Groupism, like making groups. That is the problem. It can be race, age, income, or whatever, but we try to divide, make division between people, and that's universal. And we can't. But we have to be very careful about making a division in groups. And I was just, I think I spoke in the class last week. Like in contemporary science, like the concept of race does not have scientific evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that? Oh, it says
No,
like, well, now, like in anthropology, well, the concept of race is not scientifically appropriate. That's what uh, anthropology teaches now. Like
anthropology is not science.
what? Well,
Anthropology is not
anthropology.
science.
No, it's in a sense. Let me check my. It's a textbook.
Anthropology is not science.
Well, it's social science.
It's
It belongs to humanity, actually.
yeah, it's not science. It's
Yeah. Well, I was just reading.
when I mean science, it's not the stems.
What? What?
It's not science. It's not part of the stems. The
Oh,
stem.
it's according to science. Science, probably biology, or No, it's not genealogy. What
The
did
genetics.
genetics?
Genetic.
According to genetics, um, the difference between different groups, the difference between the differences inside a group is much bigger than the difference between different groups. That's what genetics says nowadays.
Hmm.
That's what it
It,
says.
it makes no sense.
Why?
The difference between, let's say, people from
Oh,
um
like in
is
average,
is much wider than the people from different group.
right?
It
That's what
makes
it
no
says.
sense.
Like
That's
all like the among only 10% of all diversities. No, no, no. The difference between African, European, Asian, these groups. I'm translating, so my English is messed up. The differences between Africans, Europeans, and Asians Well, let me say, I'm sorry. Like word order is different between Japanese and English, so it's very hard to translate. Differences between huge human groups, such as Africans, Europeans, and Asians, are only 10% of all diversities in human being. However, the differences in the same group is 90%.
Okay.
So that's what it says. So I mean, the concept of race is not really scientifically appropriate. That's what it says.
Okay.
But anyways, but I'm really kind of interested in. I'm not a professional of this race issue, but I'm really interested in this, like idea of division between people. Why we want to make, why we want to divide humans based on race, income, or whatever, like gender, or like these things, and that's kind
Human
of
beings have always lived in division.
that's probably like it's really universal, but we have to be very careful about the danger of categorizing or dividing people into groups.
But we have always done it, right? It's not the first
Oh,
time.
kind of, what?
I say we have always done it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately. But division is just for convenience. It's not like essential. So that's probably what anthropologists, like as you said, like Harvard is kind of like, like there's a discrimination based on income. Like if you pay money to Harvard, you can go to Harvard, right? So it's a discrimination based on division of division in income. So it's just people are just making division, and we have to be very careful. We have to accept that we have to make divisions in order to understand, in order to how do I say, conveniently survive, conveniently live. But we have to be very careful at the same time that um, division is just for convenience, and you can't essentialize these divisions.
you cannot what?
You cannot essentialize. Essentialize, like you can't presume that division is natural.
Okay.
And also, what I really think is like we have discrimination against Koreans in Japan, and when I see these people like racists, I feel like these racists really don't have Korean friends.
Yeah, because in Japan, you guys almost look at Asian Koreans as like Mexicans, right? I think you were the one with
Michigans.
like the racist, like the way racist people look at Mexicans over here, the way Japanese racist people look at Japanese as Koreans as Mexicans.
Mexicans. What is that?
Mexican, Mexico, Mexicans.
Mexicans. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not like Mexicans. But well, like my grandfather's
It could be,
generation.
yeah, because like people who are not racist will not look at Canadians down, right? But when you look at people from Mexico, even though in most cases, a lot of some Mexicans are white, and that's what people don't realize. I mean, they are white. You only have few, the mixed people or the brown people, who come here, But if you say you're Mexico, some racist people look down. They look down on them, and I don't know. I think was it you or someone who was telling that there's a lot of Koreans, like a lot of Japanese people don't respect. They look down
Oh, they
So,
look
so
down on Korean. Well,
yeah,
not many, but some Japanese look down on Koreans actually. And well, this is like I feel like these racist people really don't have Korean friends. That's why they don't. They generalize Koreans. And if you have
okay.
Korean, well, Koreans are very nice. I mean, I when I was in the United States, I had Korean friends, and they were so nice. They treat you like you're like their family. They're
Hmm.
very, very hospitable people. So, well, they just don't simply have friends. They just
Yeah,
complain, generalize.
that's why people who don't know the other tend to do the generalize,
Right.
right?
The only way to, get away from this generalization is to have friends and to communicate with people.
I don't disagree with you.
And like as I said before, like in Tennessee, I felt like blacks and whites are actually they form different communities, but there should be an opportunity in which they can interact with each other, and they can be friends. And also U.S. South, like probably in New York is the same is in the same situation. Like black church and white church are different.
Hmm. Why is
So
that?
why?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't really. Well, you can go. I mean, blacks can go to white church, but they don't.
yeah. Most white people don't go to black church, but
Mm.
yeah, you're right.
And
Um,
blacks.
but blacks would tend to. I think blacks would tend to reach out more than whites do, to be honest, from my
Oh,
point of view.
black church is more interesting than white churches, though. Well, from my perspective, because they sing very loud,
They
and
sing.
they're yeah, it's really active. I mean, like Nepalese church. Uh, Probably you have been to Nepalese church, and they are kind of like what very how do I say
Loud.
loud. They pray very loud and very. I can't find the word. I'm losing my English. It's just horrible. My English was much better when I was in the United States.
Mm, yeah.
I don't.
All right, Monsieur, let's wrap this up so you
Okay.
can go to
Oh
bed.
well, let me introduce one of the book that is very interesting. Let me introduce one, but I can't find it. I can't find it. It's somewhere. Are you?
Uh, this is the most
Oh
funniest.
no, I can't find it. Why? Where did the book? What? Why? Well, there's a book called very interesting with a very interesting title. It was written by uh let me check. Let me check. Alfonso Lingis. Lingis. There's a book called um, Community of uh, oh, that's it. All right, that's it. The community of those who have nothing in common,
Mm,
by Alfonso Lingis. He discusses like community is based on like something common, like when sharing commonality, right? But current philosophers are trying to um, find the possibility of the communities without sharing anything.
mm.
So I think this is a very interesting approach for the community uh, to come. Anyways, all right.
All right, mate. This
Is that good enough?
wrapping this up. Yeah, we're wrapping this up. This is Akiva, and this is my friend Mitsure, Dr. Niwa. Thanks for joining us today to have this conversation. Au revoir. See you. Talk to you later.
All right.
Just
Talk
stay
to you.
on.